All right, kicking it off here. It is June 5th, 2024, hanging out with Joey from Helium Foundation. We just got back from Consensus. Dude, what's going on, man? What'd you learn? What'd you find out?
Our community is awesome. That's the high level, right?
Generally pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, nothing draws the picture better than being at a crypto conference and just like seeing these sort of deep end projects shine. So, a lot of buzz around the whole segment. People are starting to like, I think, big picture come around. Like we've always known like who's really into this stuff in our own circles, but
Yep.
that circle's getting bigger, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I saw that I'd like to get your feedback on. Is it seemed like everything is now getting labeled DePIN. So,
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I think you and I probably even have differing opinions of what DePIN is, which we could probably spend the whole hour like arguing over. But
sure.
uh, it's I think as the term gets really heavily loaded, there's going to be a lot of noise in there, and I think it is helpful to sort of like help filter and helps like people who aren't paying super close attention figure out what the projects that are worth following or like sort of worth paying attention to are. And some of these are just in it because they can attach themselves to a thing. um,
Dude,
and
well
it's a maybe a
let's
dangerous thing.
jump in. I mean, how would you define DePIN? I've got my kind of my own definition with caveats, but maybe we have a
Yeah.
slight discussion.
I Well, so it's like it's physical infrastructure, right? So you got to deploy something. You're doing some work in the world, whether it's you physically or I guess rarely are we physically doing the work, but uh, something out there doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then to me, the location of the thing is really important.
Oh,
So,
okay.
or the idea that it is geographically placed somewhere.
So like
So
location dependent.
yeah, because like you know, in almost in a sense where I start to cast out things like you know r- distributed compute, right?
Yep.
Um, unless it's actually like location dependent, which there is an argument to be made for latencies and things like that. Um,
Is that the English
it doesn't
pronunciation? Latency.
latency. I don't know. It's like so.
Okay.
I was out last night with a bunch of Solana people. We're trying to kick off this like Solana SF like thing. So
Yeah.
it's one of those mornings. But
So I've got to come
um,
to you to do this meeting. I can't get you down here. We should do Solana SD. That sounds better.
we, we might be able to make something happen. So yeah, I'm not going to go down that tangent yet. But
Okay, so for you when you're thinking
yeah.
about DePIN, it's this idea that obviously there's physical infrastructure involved, so something that you can get your hands on, and then
Mhm.
that it's also location dependent in some sense.
Yep. Yeah. So
Okay.
like everything from like Frodobots to Hive Mapper to Helium, like there's some sense of locale that is sort of a critical piece of those things. Um, and I think that sort of helps draw a line for the sort of folks that say like Bitcoin is a deep in or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think okay, so I like that. I think that that might be termed kind of the classic and maybe the like the hardline version of DePIN, which is totally fine, right? Is
mhm.
that the as initially conceived? And by the way, what's up, Siegfried, Derek, and Travis? Good to see you guys. As it was initially conceived, DePIN really as like the incarnation of Helium is a thing in the real world that really anyone, as long as you had the the property rights to go on it, could go up and actually touch the thing, the radio, the antenna, that, and that
Mm.
where that was really important to the network. That they all of those things couldn't be in one box in a server room. Okay, I think what we're seeing is maybe a little bit of kind of agreeing with that, and on my side is agreeing with that, and then also I'd like to think seeing a little bit of a bigger picture piece with where the whole kind of economy market thing goes. So in my little selfish like claiming my little stake mine, I'm 100% on board with you. Like the thing has to be in the real world. It's got to be super important where the location is, um,
Mhm.
in the same Hive Mapper, Frodomot, etc. But also in working with a bunch of these projects, I see that there's two things. There's room for this kind of distributed compute idea as DePIN, and this is something that goes to kind of my initial understanding of crypto and what I thought was important and what I didn't think was important, and then where I think it is now. And so maybe we wind this back a little bit. When I got into cryptos, like the selling point is like, governments can't touch it and nobody can do anything. And it's your sovereign money. And I was like, that's it, stupid. I'm just here to speculate, right? It was back in like 2013, 2014, or whenever Ethereum was under $2 was when I was first getting into it.
Yep.
It's like, I didn't care about any of that stuff. I didn't care about the whatever compute stuff. It's kind of neat, but it's like, oh, that's so far beyond what I can do. And many people, you included, Joey, have helped me figure out that I actually could do a lot more than I thought I could. But a lot of the stuff that crypto was built for didn't seem that important, like the ability to send money anywhere in the world super fast, super cheap relative to current banking systems, and also the ability to move the money as you saw fit, right? And not to rely on someone else to give you permission to move your money. And so when I think about, and I'll get to where I'm going, but I want to spend a minute on this crypto thing. When I think about now, as Max and I have built Golden Hawks into an international brand, and we've got companies from all over the world who hire us, one of the really difficult things is just getting paid. And it sounds so silly, right? If you're like a giant company, you're some big oil company, like you've got a whole division of folks who figure out how your oil wells in Texas pay out to wherever, Saudi Arabia, and that stuff is maybe not easy, but there's a group of people doing it. When it's a much smaller business, and most of business is small business, it's a huge pain in the ass. If a company in Singapore or Switzerland or wherever, Greece, wants to pay us, there's wire fees, it takes time. It's like basically the thing that I would consider our money is not ours for a while, and someone else has control over it. And so crypto actually solves this thing that I thought was a problem that didn't need to be solved. I think the other piece there was a personal example is my wife, Leah, is an artist. She collaborated with another artist out of Pakistan, and that big piece sold. I don't know, I won't say the exact price, but let's say a couple grand, like not like $5. And so they had to split it, and sending money to Pakistan, we literally went, like, this is what it came down to, is we had to go into a CVS and talk to that guy to get to Western Union, and then Western Union this money. And it was this whole like thing in the real world that I never thought was that big of a deal. I didn't think moving money was that big of a problem, but it is. And in the same way, I think this idea of decentralized physical infrastructure, where before I would have been far more rigid and said like, no, this thing, it can't be in a server room somewhere. It can't be in a data center. I think there are aspects to it that in my everyday life, I don't deal with, but that in the bigger picture, it might be pretty important to include all of those folks and say, actually, it does make sense to have distributed servers in the US and in Central America and South America, and maybe in specific countries, and not to say that they shouldn't be allowed just because they're run by, super pros who can do things faster and better than I can. And so I think this like distributed cloud thing, as Hack said, I think it actually should be included in DePIN for those practical reasons. I'll stop my whatever soliloquy in a second here. But the other piece that I saw at Consensus is as you walked around, everybody is DePIN, even if they're patently not, if they're like a fucking grasshopper farm making bugs or whatever, if they want to call themselves DePIN and that helps more people find out about DePIN and find out about the entire thing, then they can come in and make their own decisions. Dude, I'm fucking 100% for grasshoppers. Bring everybody in and let them figure it out.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm bearish grasshoppers. I think maybe that's our difference then. Like, because like my worry is like somebody comes in and learns about grasshoppers and they think DePIN is grasshoppers. Like that's
fair point.
And so it's that it takes they would have to have enough momentum to get through the noise to figure out like what this thing is really about, and that's so. Yeah, we're a little split on that, but that's good.
Yeah, and I think Shane's point, I saw this on Tom Trowbridge had a podcast with 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐸𝐻 the other day, and 𝐒𝐩𝐸𝐻 had split it out into DePIN and DVIN, so decentralized physical infrastructure networks and decentralized virtual infrastructure networks. I think that seems as reasonable as we're going to get as far as like how do we look at these things and then say, okay, they're different. For right now, as smart as 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐻 is, I don't think DVIN is going to take off, even though it's probably correct. It's just all going to be DePIN, and that's how it's going to
be. It was hard enough to get DePIN to stick. Like that, that took some momentum. But
that took Masari to do that. And then, the bunch of us came in behind it and said like, okay, this is what we're going to go with. If Masari's going to go with it, we're going to back that 100%. No, I definitely
Yeah.
didn't name this Travis. I think it was Sammy Kassab who came up with the name, and then Masari pushed it,
Uh-huh.
and then Max and I are like, yeah, let's put
And I
whatever
was
brand
trolling them
recognition. Yeah,
to still
yeah,
be
yeah,
called Helium inspired physical infrastructure
yeah.
networks. But
Heathens,
yeah,
heavens.
hippins. Yeah. Um, yeah, like I'm happy to sort of take my like physical locale definition and sort of cast that to a virtual space. Looking at like projects like Grass or ATOR, where like your IP address is your
Your thing, yeah.
lat long
Yep,
effectively, because like that does require some distribution. But
yeah.
if you're running like distributed EC2 or whatever, and like everything can run through like one big server somewhere, like that starts to like fall off of that story for me.
Ooh, maybe that's the distinguishing point is that like could it all run through a big server and be everything except decentralized but perfect otherwise? Or does requiring physical distribution across geography make the thing better?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like the like could it be done in a web 2 setting like tests,
Mm-hmm.
because like a lot of times sure you could like put pennies in an envelope and send them to somebody and deal with the transaction fees, or like do a point system or like whatever, right? So like rub a little crypto on it isn't really like enough of a story to like
I love
make it
that.
a deep in, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, like it has to be a critical piece of it, and it's like all of these things sort of fit together to like make that thing work. But uh
Yeah.
anyway, it's like I'm just like a person with an opinion. This is like by no means like my I'm not casting something on a platform here.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think
so,
we're all
yeah.
kind of figuring this thing out, and I think it's super important to have these conversations in public as much as you can with ideally respected members of the community. So it's like, hey, it's not 100% this or 100% that. Like these are what these guys or girls think. Like make your own opinion. Hopefully the information is all out there, and then you get to decide what you think is important.
Yeah, I think Austin Federa went on a podcast with a bunch of Filecoin folks a couple weeks back, and I think he made the same statement around physical location being a thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we agree with you." And then I guess we're not a deep in, so it's like it was kind of funny for that to
Yeah.
come out of the Filecoin side, where like they've also been, you know, telling that story a bit as well.
Yeah. 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 I want the whole thing to get bigger. I mean, I just got off a call with the Threefold folks, and they've got decentralized, distributed compute and distributed storage, and they're building
Mhm.
kind of this version of the internet that is, the idea is that it's less assaultable as far as like one centralized structure charging you for this or that, or forcing everyone to go on Amazon. And I look at that stuff and say, okay, those guys have to be supported just like everything else. And I mean, I'll get pilloried for saying this, but I don't think Amazon is evil. I think Amazon's fucking awesome. They have created a new, like a total gift to the world and made it easier, for consumers like you and I to get whatever parts we want to our door in a day or two. And they've also
Mm.
created this giant compute structure that while you can trip and fall and spend $10,000 and then figure out how to pay that, it's also super useful to businesses at scale. So I think thinking of like the Web 2 side as bad or evil, or centralization inherently being bad or evil. It's like, no, there's different ways of doing things. But if we're moving into this world where things are, at least people have a chance to be more fair, I would love to see more distributed and decentralized projects come in. So I think on my side, I'll support as much of that as possible.
Yeah, wow. Love it. Um,
Cool. So let's see.
yep.
Something else that I saw, Joey, was Max and I have been experiencing this quite a bit, talking to all these projects where we're considering whether or not to advise them. Is a lot of folks do not clearly or obviously don't have the same history that you and I and Max and the folks that have been Travis here, and I'm sure Siegfried and a couple of the folks who are kind of watching this have been here since the beginning. They're like, oh yeah, I remember HIP 15 and 17. Like as silly as it sounds, and I don't want it to be like an elitist thing, but there's people out there who are like, I have trouble keeping up with the hips now. Never mind 15, 17. Like, what's that? Or who's
Mhm.
Para One? Or, all these things where to us, it's like, okay, well, this is, you have to have this native understanding of DePIN in order to skip past all the mistakes that new projects are making. And Max and I, in just kind of casual conversations at Consensus, we realized like, holy smokes, there's a lot of people coming in here who are slapping DePIN on, and then they're making the same mistakes that have been made before because they just didn't take the time to understand it. So pretty
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah. Um, it, I'm kind of working through some like tokenomics stuff and proposals right now, just kind of workshopping things. And
Hmm.
I think it's actually really valuable just to like go cherry pick things from projects where you think it's successful. So
Yeah.
it's like if you think Demo does like token emissions for new hardware, right? Like they have some tier system where like the longer your device is online, the more it earns.
Yep.
Um, do that. Just go point to them, give them credit, and say
Yeah.
like we're doing exactly what Demo does.
Yep.
Like, or we're gonna go do exactly what Helium does for this emission thing. Like you don't have to be clever about this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's gonna like give you more credit because you like plagiarized a thing and like tried to pretend like it was your own or like paraphrased it or whatever. Like just go point to the thing. Say like
Yeah.
this is solved. Go read how they did it. If you have questions, like go ask them. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yep. Totally.
there's a lot of stuff in our ecosystem that to like go point to for that. Um,
Yeah.
I was talking to a founder last night. This is actually it gets back into our like DePIN like decompute whatever thing, but he's building basically AI inference as a service through people's computers. So you can sign your computer up and it'll load Llama 3, which is like an open source AI model. Uh, and then you can go sign up for his service and get AI stuff, right? Like
Yep.
if you want to plug it into your own chat GPT or whatever. Um,
Oh,
and one of the things, yeah,
we have so much
it's
to
pretty
talk
cool.
about.
Yeah. We should get into this because I think it's a pretty neat project.
Yep.
And after talking to him, I like totally respect the direction he's going. But one of the things that he's doing, which is one of the things that I made like a really late realization for Helium, is that he's just not charging for the service. Like it's just free. So you can go in, you can run your AI model stuff, you can
Hmm.
ask it questions and all of that, and it's just it's like it's in the establishment period. We're going to figure out the pricing stuff later. Um, and the market is so volatile, like there's a lot of unknowns. It actually kind of makes sense to think about things that way. Um, and it's arguably would have been a good direction for Helium with the IoT network. Just say like all of this data transfer is free. Just like get in there, start using, like start building on it. And we promise not to be too mean when we set a price to it in the future or something. Or like this will be the price in like
Yeah.
2028 or something, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Eh,
uh,
it's
but
interesting. I know that. Yeah. That's an interesting thing to
yeah,
kind of figure out. Yeah.
it would have alleviated all of the like pressure and concerns and like you know like arguments that happen around data credit pricing and stuff because it just would have been like a future problem and it would have let us focus on just like building and deploying and stabilizing things and
Sure. Although
anyway
you'll
yeah
100% get people. I mean, just as Travis is saying, it's like they'll be pissed no matter what. And I think I knew I'd start the pot a little bit with this Amazon is awesome thing. Siegfried's saying it right here is that like, hey, I think that Amazon is awesome in many ways. Obviously, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm reminded of that daily.
Mhm.
So just like figuring out like, okay, this is what these guys did, and it's super super rad. And then obviously some parts are not as rad.
yeah I mean the challenging part for Amazon web services these days is from an organizational standpoint there's more salespeople than there are engineers like it is
Oh,
like
really? Okay.
it is a once you start like talking to support team or like salespeople or whatever, you realize that that organization goes really really deep and they want to lock you in as far as they can. They want to get the clause in all the way,
Yeah.
um, because
Yeah.
once you've got that stuff set up, it's hard to go back. But
Yeah. Yeah. I bet they're fast and they're good. I tiptoed into that with Germ when I got the OUI. We're like, oh, let's set this thing up. And then when I saw it and I started going through the process, and between Germ and it was, I mean, with that guy, like almost anything I think technically is possible, but that was out at the limits of like what he knew in that particular area. And then I saw a fair amount in the AF group on Discord of like, hey, you can, step on the rake accidentally and knock yourself with a $10,000 a month bill and not know why or not be able to turn it off. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to
mhm.
mess with that. I'm just going to pass it over to Paul. So definitely kind of ups and downs, but I haven't gone deep in it. I've just heard horror stories, but I know that a lot of
Yeah,
companies are using AWS and they're like, well, that's because it's the best, the fastest, and the cheapest, and we'll deal with the downsides.
Yeah, we had a thing. We were trying to stand up an API service, and we had a cache invalidation setting sent wrong, and it just turned into like $10,000 overnight.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
so
for
then
coming.
we went in circles. Yeah, yeah, we went in circles trying to get them to clear it. They ended up clearing a portion of it, and then
Yeah.
we moved the whole service to Cloudflare. So that
Yeah.
was
Yeah. I mean,
thank you.
that's the thing
Yeah,
is, I don't think they have to be that careful of that. But yeah, that's when you have that bad experience. No matter what, you're kind of you're burned pretty good, dude. Let's talk a
yeah,
little bit about. Let's see. Okay, I'll finish off my my stuff on consensus, and then I want to talk about this AI compute at home project because I'm ultra psyched on it. So
cool.
consensus, I walked around. Let's see. Saw the we. What is up there? Think I saw Urosh from Onocoy. Always cool to talk to him about what they're doing, which is this, really true to the decentralized piece of like you bring your own hardware. You don't need to buy our hardware, which is something that Helium was really good at. They started off with their hardware and they quickly said like, hey, we want other people to do this. Obviously, that didn't work out perfectly, but it worked out well enough to build a global network. So just cool to see Onocoy working through those problems. Like I said, the Threefold folks talked to, I don't think any of those guys were there, but as I talked to each person about the compute and the storage parts, like, okay, these guys have a place in the market. And then we got to wear the ATOR shirts around. That was super fun just to see like, okay, this is how these things, look and work. And this is what they're bringing to it. The WeatherXM obviously had their announcement there with Monos. I got a chance to catch up with him. That dude is he was super busy there. I think he's super busy in general, but it's just like,
Yeah,
it took 2 days to track him down and be like, dude, let's get 15 minutes and talk a little bit about the launch, which was more or less like a non-event in terms of it just, everything worked, which I thought was testament to how long they took to do it. And
yeah,
then I want to make sure the IoTeX folks got a shout out because they put on another pretty good event as far as, I think it sounds so stupid, but it sounds so inconsequential, but splitting up like the talking section and like the event section, and then the talking section and the event section. So there's like a stage where people can talk and you can generally hear it and the audio is pretty good. And then you go into a crowded room with all the vendors and that can be not as loud as you want, but just
mm,
they're getting that. I don't think it was as good as Denver, but at least they have a separation there.
okay. I heard Scott Siegel got an applause during
No,
his talk,
right on,
IoTeX thing.
Scott.
Yeah,
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. That's
yeah,
got it's funny. I got a chance to talk to him and I may have talked to him longer than I've talked to him in the past year just because that guy's ultra busy all the time as well. So
yep.
yeah. Let's see.
We can talk some compute
Let's
stuff.
talk some AI stuff at home.
Yeah.
So this came up with fuck. I've got to deal with this thing that this lady's at the door right now.
Well, let me give an overview of
Yeah. Tell me what you
this network that I
you
was
see.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I've talked a little bit on your show previously around IONet, and it's this idea that you can go onboard your computer as a resource for like a variety of compute things. Like somebody
Yep.
can go and like just, you know, have it as part of a cluster and then run things on it, whatever that thing is. It's like sort of, dealer's choice. Um, this new one that I was talking to, so this company is called Cusco. Like I dropped it in the little guest chat. I don't know if you can see that, but 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐫𝐬𝐡𝐢𝐩. Um,
Ooh, let me see if I can
they,
figure out the guest chat on this thing.
oh yeah, more buttons.
Yeah.
Um, but the general strategy that they're taking is like, we think that people, they just need the service, right? Like if you look at ChatGPT or something, people just go and sign up for that thing. They pay BI credits, that do the tokens, all that kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
they get responses in the shape of like whatever input they feed it. And so we're in a point right now where there's a lot of really good open source AI models sort of outside of the closed source, confusingly open AI, right?
It's
Don't
closed
make it
AI.
started
Yeah.
on that. Yeah. So they're basically going, loading those models on individuals' machines, and then they can run these challenges against those models. And they are doing sort of a token incentivization point like thing with that. And then, like I said earlier, like the access side of it is free. So like you go spin up an account, immediately you have an API key, and you can just like go plug that in somewhere and start playing around with it. But the like one of the things that like talking to him, he's trying to balance is like trying to keep the supply side balanced with the demand side, so that you don't have just like a whole bunch of computers sitting there doing nothing, because it's going to really quickly sort of lend to some atrophy in your supply side user base. It's great for the demand side folks because they've got a million folks to pick from, but when the thing's free anyway, it doesn't actually make any difference. So kind of cool hearing the overall strategy. Like right now he's onboarding a bunch of folks because it's like relatively new. I think they just closed a funding round. But I'll be curious to follow this project and kind of see how it evolves. Like there's definitely still bugs right now. Like sometimes the client doesn't fire up straight away, stuff like that.
No.
But yeah,
Some deep
but,
encrypted thing with bugs? That's impossible.
Frankly, I'd be disappointed if it didn't. But pretty neat to sort of hear how folks are thinking about the space and building different segments on it.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my little like remote AI compute thing. I'm curious what you got cooking.
Okay. So, this has come up a couple times in one of the channels in the general channel, I think in the AF general and Discord server, is Vortal has been egging me on to buy some kind of AI thing. And I started, I was like, hey, what should I get here? What could I do? And so I think I put this in time. If not, if you're watching this, you may have to refresh the window live. If you watch it afterwards, you'll see it. But there's a link down to a Google spreadsheet. I wonder if I do. I can put it in here. That's like this home build AI thing. And so let me drop it in so everybody can see it. And let's see. There it is. Cool. Okay, so what Vortal and I did is we went back and forth because I've never built a computer at home before, never done any of that stuff. I was like, oh, what would it take for me to run my own home AI was how I initially thought about it. And when I say home AI, I think about a couple things. I can give probably 3 examples. One is super straightforward. Paleo Treats, which is the company that Lee and I run, so paleotreats.com, has a live chat app that integrates with Shopify. Right now, it's only a thing that works when Lee basically turns on live chat. So if she turns on live chat, if you talk to someone on paleotreats.com, you're literally talking to my wife. That's the only person on there. If she's not, it'll just be like, hey, leave a message and get back to us later. She'll get that message. So she gives amazingly good customer service. We've owned this thing for 15 years, so there's not much we don't know about the company and how to help people. But it's, when she goes to sleep, the thing turns off, and live chat, especially at the beginning when we started using it 6 or 8 years ago, is this incredibly powerful tool to generate sales, right? People come on, they'll have some question that they can't find on the website, but a live chat will answer it instantly. Like, do you have triple berry cakes in stock right now? What time do you close? Like, the information is kind of it is on the website, but it takes some finding. Live chat can answer that right away. So the first thing I thought was, how do I integrate an AI agent into live chat based on the 8 years of transcripts we have? Right. So it used to be that both Lee and I took it. So I'd like to think there's a lot of really high quality examples in there, and it is years and years of transcripts. But when I looked at it, the options were to spend like $100 a month to have the AI integration, have someone else run it on their metal. And also you end up paying for another agent seat on live chat. So there's no way to not pay for the agent seat on live chat. So right now, if you go to Paleo Treats and it pops up, it'll be Lee. What I would like to have is you go to Paleo Treats, it pops up, and maybe if Lee's not on there, you'd see whatever Paleo bot or whatever we name it, Frank, who cares? And as long as it's obvious that you're talking to an AI agent, and then that agent can answer any of your questions. What time do we close? What, do you have this cake in stock? What's in this one thing? But I didn't want to pay a ton of extra for that. I think with a lot of these, especially with food businesses, margin is so thin compared to what you have to put into it, is you really want to watch your costs. So I thought, I could probably run my own AI at home and segment out a portion of it to run the Paleo Treats chat. So when Lee turns off her kind of agent chat, this thing fires back up. So that's like example one. Example two of an AI is I've been reading all these training books. I'm getting into this whole ski-mo thing and training for like going out in the mountains this winter and being able to ski up, mostly up is where you need to train for, and then ski down, which is more technique. That there's not a great way for me to get technique in the summer here in San Diego, but I can certainly get crushing. Yeah, Siegfried, I totally threw some hardware power at it. Yeah, there's certainly.
I was thinking the same thing. This is a
good
beast of a machine.
Uphill. Yeah, I've been buying all these books, and back in 2015 was the culmination of this 3-year effort to run this really long distance race called the Leadville 100, which is a 100-mile race all above 10,000 feet out in Colorado. When I was doing that, I was reading all these books and, really looking into how do you train the most efficiently and the most effectively to do real well in that. It took 3 years for me to figure it out. Finally, finished it and thought I'd figured it out well enough to finish it. But as I get back into this training piece at 46 years old, it's like, okay, I probably have like 14 years left, let's say up to 60, to be like where I could keep up with most people of any age. I won't keep up with the 23-year-olds who are getting after it, who are like the world class, but 46 to 50, you can be the old dog for the hard road. You can keep up with the top, let's say, 90%. You can't, the last 10% are going to crush you because it's some 23-year-old who recovers instantly. But how would I do that given all of the information that I've read? Now, unlike Max Gold, I don't have perfect recall. And so while I have all these books on my bookshelf and I've read them, I was like, oh, this would be super cool if I could take the PDF of that book, dump it into my own personal AI home machine, and then say, hey, here's my training program I built. How could I improve that or fix that? And I see Vortal had found, God, what is it, Vortal? If you're watching, I think it's like anything LLM, and it may be similar to the 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐡𝐢𝐻 thing that you dropped, where you can pull all of these models into your machine. Now, what I'm learning is that I didn't realize this, but there's the model and then there's a RAG, which is, what is it, like retrieval augment generation or something? I'm gonna get that wrong. But there's the model itself, which is like the structure and the framework. And then there's the information that you feed it. And if I'm getting this right, the RAG is the information you feed it. And if anyone knows that I'm wrong, tell me. But I was like, oh, I could dump all of these different books that I've bought into this RAG, have the RAG feed the LLM, and then go through and say, let's build a 7-month training program so that I can go out in January to Salt Lake City, participate in a ski-mo race, and be competitive. Maybe not win it, be 47 by that time, but be good enough where it's like, fucking A, I didn't think a guy from San Diego would be that good. So like a fun thing to do. So number 1 is a Paleo Treats chat thing. Number 2 is this training coach thing. And then number 3 is, what was the third one that I was like, oh, this might be super cool. I had this idea last night in the shower that you could do with OpenAI right now. Our FedEx guy came by yesterday, 2 days ago at Paleo Treats, and he's like, oh, recession's coming. I'm shipping less packages. And it's the FedEx guy. So it's like, who do you take your economic advice from? I think there's some value in hearing kind of frontline information like that. But it's also, I thought, how would I know as a non-trained economist that a recession is coming? And I thought I could ask ChatGPT to say, oh, I know what my last one was. Let me write it down so I don't forget it, because I'll hit it after this. How do you figure out if a recession is coming? And I thought, like, I could go to ChatGPT and say, what are 3 orthogonal indicators of recession or a bubble? And then how would I find those things and then track them? And orthogonal means that they are unrelated to each other. So I don't want to see like, economy factor 1 and economy factor 2. I want to see like economy factor 1 and then like, I don't know, trash collection factor 2, and then, FedEx package like pickup.
The price of a Big Mac and
Yep. So like 3 things that aren't related to each other, but Zim, cool. What's up, Zim? Zim and Vortal, same person. So doxed right there, buddy.
Oh. Yeah.
Self-doxed, to be very clear. What are 3 orthogonal factors of recession or a bubble? And then how could I look those up now and see for myself what that is? Now, that's not a great thing because you can just do that with OpenAI, but that leads me to the third thing that I'd forgotten, which is this Paleo Treats inventory control thing. So at Paleo Treats, Lee and I have been pretty loose on keeping track of where all our ingredients are and how much they weigh and how much they cost and all that over the years. We just ran the business and we figured we would know if the business wasn't good because we'd run out of money. And I started looking at it and saying, okay, I can build this thing in Python. That's a bunch of different files. It says like, okay, I just baked this thing. What do I need next? And what's the cost of all my ingredients? What's my most expensive ingredient? What's the most expensive recipe to bake? All that stuff. But that includes recipes, which are a proprietary thing for paleo treats. So I've been pretty foolish and just put all that stuff on ChatGPT, because I figured at the absolute worst, someone just takes over paleo treats and runs away with it. It's like, okay, that's bad, but to be frank, it's not like this amazingly good business where I'd lose billions of dollars. So it's like, okay, it's worth the risk there. But if I think of other stuff that is information I would not like to share, I would love to have my own home AI where I put all of these different aspects of my business or maybe my personal life. For me, I don't care if people know how much I weigh, but whatever, my own finances, the rest of it, into an AI where I'm not giving it to ChatGPT and saying, this is how much money I made this month. Where should I put it? Where should I invest it? What should I save? What's the best thing to do? How do I pay off this thing? What should I do there? And so for those kind of 3 use cases, it seemed really interesting to build a home machine. And then to your point and to Siegfried's point about that thing being a beast, I was like, well, if I'm going to do something, I might as well do it all the way as far as I can. And then Zim and I were laughing today because he's like, hey dude, did you see that some company just came out with a list of things that they were building, and it's I don't know if it's an exact copy, but there's like one difference between what I put out there. And I cannot imagine that I'm leading the world in building home AI machines. I think it's more a question of like, we all look at the same thing and come up with the same conclusions, but kind of cool to see that stuff. So that's,
yeah. I mean, you can also just like onboard this thing to one, maybe more, I don't know, of these like distributed compute things. And
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's the last piece. So let's say I drop, $5,000 into it right now. For me to do that and not care, I'd probably sell some crypto. So Lee and I are just going back and forth, like, should we sell crypto at the bottom of the market and buy this thing so that I can experiment with it and play around? What do I lose? Let's say I'm holding crypto X and that crypto is going to be 10X, which I think is reasonable in many of the cryptos that I hold. Am I selling $5,000 now that's going to be worth $50,000 later? Probably. Is that worth it from like a business and curiosity standpoint to leave those profits in there and to have access to this thing now? And as you said, I mean, I could immediately take this thing and rent it out to Threefold. It sounds like I can put it on whatever that, what was it, KuCoin? Cusco thing is. Like, there's a lot of options that I could do this stuff with. Yeah, so that's my home AI project right now. Is I'm really going back and forth. I think it's financially stupid to sell crypto right now, but I think this is also insanely exciting as far as like what do I learn by building this thing at home, because I haven't built this computer before, and then what I gain by having access to a private LLM that's like got whatever, all of my stuff in it that I might not be so psyched to put publicly.
Yeah, it's more than ever, it feels like actually a thing to take on. Like the libraries that exist, the projects that exist to just go like fire this stuff up. Like, it feels really doable. Like, you're not gonna have to become like a AI scientist like you would have had to like 5 years ago. So yeah.
Oh, and there's Neil. What's up, Neil? I never get to see you anymore. Get yourself a chance in and run Home Assistant, and you can run your own LLMs. Yeah. So I mean, Vortal found this thing. What is it, Vortal? Put the link in here. It's like anything LLM where you can run these things on your computer. And if you've got a newer Mac, I was running this on my laptop. It takes
the M1s.
What's that?
Oh, the Mac, fast. The M1 stuff. Like, yeah, they got hardware for it.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a couple minutes to go back and forth. And if you're used to ChatGPT, which answers pretty quickly, it seems slow. But as
you're getting like 10, 15 tokens a second or something like that. So it's a little slower.
Ooh, could this personal AI project on AWS or Cloudflare at lower cost?
Almost certainly not.
Oh, really? You don't think so? Oh, I think you could trip and fall and spend a bunch more. Oh, Fred Garner, you build your own machines. Okay. So I think, Derek, because you usually have questions that everyone else asks, but they're too afraid to ask. I think your questions are good. There's a couple facts staring me in the face that Zim has made super clear. Is like, you can build this thing. It will be out of date within a year. Number one. Number two, you can't build something this powerful and offset the cost if you're just comparing it to ChatGPT. So the reason that anyone should or would build this, the reasons are probably only two. And for most people, just, ooh, do I do one or do I want do one? Is you want to keep your information private. That would be the sole reason to spend that money. And if it's worth it to you to spend whatever amount you want to spend on whatever size machine, you certainly do not have to spend $5,000. You can spend $1,000. You can spend much less. As Neil said, you could do this thing on a Jetson, so it's at maybe $500 to all in by the time you're done fucking around. You'd maintain your privacy. Maybe it wouldn't be as fast as Mega Machine, but that's fine. And then two, for me, and this is just a huge driving factor for me personally, is I get to explore a new thing that I don't know anything about. And that has been, for me, like this path to success across my business life. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess to elaborate on my thing of like running it on Amazon, you're kind of paying more people to do all of the same work when you're like channeling that up through Amazon. But the trade-off is that you don't own the hardware and you don't have to like figure out what to do with it at the end of the day, but you will pay for that hardware like, one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to think of it, is that all things, you follow the money at the end, is that there's no way any of these companies are doing this for free. Although actually that's not true, because they could be in the short term, they get funded, so they don't care how much it costs them to provide that service, and they're going after this giant market share. So it could be something like where you could easily make it much cheaper for you in the 1 to 2 year term.
Well, I mean, like Cusco can emit tokens, right? Like they don't have to pay anybody. That's kind of the whole like 0 to 1 thing. But, yeah. I actually just pulled up that console. It's running on a M2 Mac that I have, and it's doing about 35 tokens a second. It's actually not terrible. It's cranking through. I set it up like the beginning of this call, and it's already done like 180 generations.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Badass.
Cool.
Like,
yeah.
Is that sound material in the back, Joey? I should have asked this earlier. This black stuff.
Oh, yeah. So this co-working space, they set up a little like podcast corner.
Nice.
But otherwise, I'm just in a big empty room here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything LLM. Thanks, Sim. So I should probably take this thing off here. Actually, I think everyone's seen it. So then the last thing that I've got to talk about is Frodobots today. And I'm pretty sure, well, not I'm pretty sure. I will not be surprised if this doesn't work, just because it's all pretty cutting edge. But they just confirmed today in the Frodobots owner server that the sharing should work. So Travis and I have these things. I've got two of them. I think, I don't know, I'm not going to say how many Travis has. I think he's got one. There's a couple people in the GK server and in the Frodobots home server who have a bunch of these Frodobots, and we're figuring this things out. But I think today in the GK server, I'll put my share links live while I go into the office, because I'll be there 2 to 6 or something this afternoon. And we'll see if we can get the share things to work. So keep an eye out on Twitter, or maybe I'll just do it on Discord first so I don't go batshit crazy. And I would not like to give those guys bad publicity, because I think in the early, like in the bleeding edge kind of time period, so you get super excited about something, it doesn't work. Like I expect none of this stuff to work, and when it does, I'm like, oh damn, it's cool that it worked. But normal people, I don't want them coming along and being like, oh, that thing didn't work, it's a piece of shit. It's like, none of this. You don't understand where you are. You're not going into Walmart and pulling a thing off the shelf where you can return it. You're at a new thing. Did you lose yours in Austin, Travis? Huh.
Oh no.
Huh. Total bummer.
Wait, that probably warrants a story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Travis has got the link to come on here if you want to see. You're welcome to jump on, Trav. I can make this a free three-way. And then I think a 2080 is a GPU. I mean, I'm learning all this stuff myself. GPU and tensor cores. Okay, so like all this fancy shit is happening. So, yeah, I think that's most of my news. Anything else to talk about? No, I set up the Threefold DIY node. It went down. I got to get it back up. I think they're still in this point where it's like we're right at the beginning of those DIY nodes being much more stable. I think in the future, you're probably going to be able to buy hardware stuff. They're going to announce that pretty soon. That's still a couple months out. So if you want to interact with those guys in the meantime, you can do that on a DIY basis. And that's just, I think it's like fun to explore and see like, okay, what is this shared compute, shared storage thing? Like, what are these guys doing? And I think it's threefold.io. But that's been like a fun little thing to, pull my little computer out and plug it into the screen and the keyboard back there and figure all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Siegfried's got a good little, Ooh,
what's
are you hitting
new?
Siegfried's question here?
Yeah.
Yeah, LoRaWAN Live is happening in Munich. I actually have like a pretty packed. I've just been like in like such an events mode. It's crazy.
Dude, you're
Uh,
nonstop. I
I
heard you were in the air and you're like, Scott, I'm coming to consensus. And he's like, okay.
it, yeah, it's been a lot of that.
Like an international
It's
man
like
of
all right,
mystery.
we got people to talk to. We're gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So LoRaWAN Live is in, was it like 2 weeks? Yeah, give or take.
Okay.
Oh, geez, it's almost like a week and a half. Oh, it's a week and a half already. It's just coming right up. Um, but we'll be there. We'll have some folks from the Helium community out there. I don't know if I should dox people or not. Uh, uh, Jubin from Uplink Network is giving a talk, so I think I can dox him.
Okay.
And so he's awesome. He's been heavily embedded with the Lore Alliance. Uplink Network is also a Lore Alliance member,
Mm-hmm.
but big fans of Helium over there. They've partnered up with 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐸𝐸𝐿 to offer their own public LNS. So
Awesome.
they're making cool moves there. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's up to other people to dox themselves, but there'll be a couple other familiar faces out there. And then I, as part of the Lore Alliance board stuff, we're going to have like a bunch of separate meetings around both technical committee and then board. A lot of, this is what we do. This is why you should pay attention. Like, here's what I want the board to do, like, the alliance to do, stuff like that. So it's going to be a really, really busy week, but we should get a lot out of it that way. And then also coming up is Sensors Converge, which is in Santa Clara.
Okay. Ooh, that's
So Nick,
close.
maybe make a little trek up here.
Let me make Sensors Converge Santa Clara.
Yeah, and if you are inclined to attend, hit me up. I may be able to trace down some tickets.
Okay. Put my glasses
Actually,
on
I
so
need to
can see
get
what I'm
that one on my
typing.
calendar. Yeah. But yeah, we're going to have a little booth there. We're partnering up with a foundation member company, show off some cool stuff.
Oh, I've got my own. I think it's like bad news and good news on Medio Scientific. I turned off the app part of it, so the console still works. Console will continue to work as far ahead as I can see. But the app side just didn't have the traction to do it. And there's other folks who are doing, which is basically like the data visualization piece, like Data Cake, etc. If you're watching this, and I know some of you are, I think Neil, you have something, and you have a way for me to send people to you when they're using the MetSci console and they want to visualize, hit me up in DMs. I'm going to make some new videos for the MetSci YouTube channel that will replace the ones that said, hey, go from MetSci console to MetSci app, because the MetSci app is no longer in existence. It might still be working now. Last time I looked at it, like almost no one had logged on to it. So there's like no one's using this thing. Who cares? there's no sense in keeping it up.
This is the thing you're doing with Lake Street.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the LNS is still up, but then gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. So console.medioscientific.com is good. App.medioscientific.com. It will be shutting down. I don't know, this week, today, yesterday. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Well, I'm going to continue to make it my mission to push you as much traffic as we can.
Cool.
Oh, cool topic. So educational LNS, we've talked about all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're making some headway, and I've sort of thrown a little couple sneaker videos out there for folks. But the ability to provision and onboard and build and visualize a device all within Helium documentation is steadily becoming a reality. So that is soon, but I'm excited to start seeing pieces of that come together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I wonder if there's something, if it makes sense for MetSci to do a video on like how to use the Helium educational. Probably not, because it just takes away from MetSci. But if there's something we can do to support, that'd be cool.
It would be the video that people find.
Right.
So maybe there's that. But from the documentation standpoint, we'll try to keep it relatively non-biased. So like that document's just going to say like at the end of it, like now go on board to a public LMS, and it'll be that.
Because the educational only lasts for 24 hours or something.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just do a couple videos. I do one for the educational, and then I do something which is would move them from kind of testing the network to using MetSci. And then I do one for like, hey, here's how you connect the MetSci console to data cake, and here's how you connect MetSci to certainly not TrackPack. Neil, what's the thing you guys are doing? I think Duck keeps working on it. But yeah, like whatever it is, just sending it to a couple different places might be good, because I do see a ton of like asks about that stuff, and I've got to figure out how to do a better job of doing like the tech support, because basically Paul set it up, I used it, but people will be like, hey, what do I do with the MQTT thing? And if you don't look in the top right for the documentation, you don't see that. And then some of that stuff is just like, well, some parts of it don't work.
And I guess to the benefit of MetSci console is the educational LNS is also built on the same structure
Chirp
from
stack,
Paul.
yeah.
So, well, yeah, with like the the Paul sprinkles on there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, dude. Oh.
Yeah, sounds good. Derek, feel free to like at me in a channel, and I'll try and find you and figure out what you're interested in about solar.
Yeah. So
I think my DMs are closed until I find the right person and connect with them. So yeah,
I think it's probably the move. So that would be going to the, I'm guessing Joey going to the GK Discord and then tag Joey in like a general thing.
Yeah.
And start the combo there. And then if he
send me your favorite GIF meme or something.
Yeah. Super cool. All right, we're gonna have the robot wars with Zim this afternoon with the 2 Frodobots. We'll see how that goes. Travis, I want to hear why you lost how you lost your thing. And then yeah. Packed week, good hour, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. All right. And we'll talk soon.
Let's. We're out.